Welcome back to another crypto cruise. Today, I am going to be talking about the market. It is coming back. We're about to enter October, so let's talk about it. And today, I will be reviewing my very own Mercedes G-Wagon. This is a 2022 G550, a special edition called Edition 550, so I'll tell you more about it. But first, let's talk about the market. Obviously, a lot of you guys noticed this past week, we've started going up in a big way. And finally getting some of that relief, right? Like, for so long, we have seen alts get hammered and hammered and hammered and hammered and hammered. And finally, to see some of it come back feels good. Now, Bitcoin, of course, have also come back. Bitcoin, obviously since March of 73,000, has been slowly trending up and down, but still more or less downwards. And we hit 49,000 once, 50-something thousand once, and I'm glad to see it now back to about 66,000, right? We're getting some momentum upwards, and that is absolutely fantastic. And all of this, of course, is due to the Fed pivot. And, you know, I hate to say I told you so, because I've been wrong so many times, honestly, because short term, hey, I can't predict what happens tomorrow, next week, right? No one knows what happens day to day, week to week. There are a lot of things that happen. There's a lot of market manipulation, but long term, you can place things together. You can do the math, 2 plus 2. At the beginning of the month, right, when it was looking bearish, I told you guys, hey, we got this big event coming up, okay? The FOMC meeting. In August, we were all talking about it. And in July, end of July, the last one, everyone was saying how Powell made a mistake and didn't cut. So the September one was going to be big. And I said at the beginning of the month, guys, I think this is going to be a big thing. And here's why. Because we haven't had a cut in 4 years. That's significant. So a lot of the red that we had in September was due to Powell raising rates, right? We saw continuous rate hikes for basically 4 years. That affects things, right? So if you look at how, like, you look at a calendar of, you know, all the negative and red months, well, a lot of that was contributed to the fact that we had rate hikes. But now, for the first time in many, many years, we're going to get rate cuts. And we got a big one. We got a 50 basis point right off the bat. And it looks like we're going to continue to get big cuts. It's looking like we may get another 50 basis point cut in November. And that's because the inflation number that just came out, the core PCE, actually went down more than expected. So it's looking good. And this is what I expected. Like, rate cuts are a good thing. Now, some people have noted, well, in the past, when we had rate cuts, we had recession afterwards. But this time is different. This time is different, and here's why, in my opinion, it's different, is because we had artificial rate hikes to try to stop inflation. And the only reason why is because the government printed way too much money and gave out way too much money and forgave way too much money. That's why we had the inflation problem. That was really it. So the government around in the US and around the world, they all simultaneously made the same mistake because of COVID pandemic, the forced shutdown and all the stuff that happened, you guys know, right? And that's why they had no choice but to raise rates. And now things have slowed down to a point they have to cut, but it doesn't look like the economy is that bad. It's not like well, the numbers are lower, but it doesn't seem like we're horribly bad. Whoa, this ain't my Ferrari. I took that turn way too fast. My rear end just started sliding out. That was bad. I could have just did a 360 there. That was really bad. Anyways, so my point is, now we're getting cuts, And yes, the economy in the U.S. and others like China and everywhere else, yes, the economies are slowing down. But I think with the rate cuts and the capital injection, the liquidity injections, it's enough to save things. I may be wrong, but I think it's enough. I you guys know me. I've been covering all these economic data points like throughout the last few years. And even though the data is showing that we're going down, but they ain't horrible. They're not really, really bad. They're getting worse, but they're not really, really bad. So we're not there yet. But that's why, anyways, going back to my original point is, I know I rambled for a long time. My original point is, I told you guys, I think after this rate cut, this Fed pivot is going to be good. I said at the beginning of the month, I think September could still be a green month, which it is right now. I mean, we still have a few days. It could turn, but I think we're going to end up in a green. And I think everything is going to according to plan. October is up. It's historically the most bullish and green month we have for Bitcoin. I don't think that's going to change. I think on average it's like 28% gain, right? That's going to drive Bitcoin up to a new high, possibly to high 70s, even in the 80s, right? And I don't think we're going to stop in November, December, because that's when we get another huge rate cut, when we have a new president, and that leads us into the Santa rally in December, because again, traditionally speaking, November, December are great for markets. They're absolutely great for markets. So I don't think anything's going to change. And again, if you're going based on history and you look at all previous cycles for Bitcoin, you look at the halving events, the halving years, when does Bitcoin normally go parabolic? When does the parabolic stage start? October, November timeframe. Every single time. Go look at what happened in 2020 and look at what happened in 2017. You'll see both times, mysteriously, right around October, November, is when Bitcoin started going up. Even in 2020, when it looked like the world was going to end, it still happened. So, bottom line is, we're moving according to previous cycles. Nothing has changed. Now we're getting the Fed pivot. We're getting massive liquidity injections, okay, from across the world. And yes, Fed cuts or rate cuts in general equate to liquidity injections, because that's ultimately what that means. When the rates are low, that means banks or regional banks can borrow from the central bank at a cheaper price, right? Meaning that the interest rate is lower, and if they can do that, that means they can lend out more. And if they're going to do that, that means the businesses, right, are more inclined to borrow because it's lower interest rate, right? So in a way, it is a capital injection, even without the government like directly giving out money. But we know like that's what's happening in China. China's actually giving out. They're actually giving like stimulus checks right now. So they're a little worse shape than the U.S. I don't think the U.S. is going to end up doing that ever again, giving out stimulus checks. Hopefully not, because that's what brought us here in the first place with the elevated inflation, right? But anyways, so I think Bitcoin's in a really good spot. Crypto, like I said, overall is in a really good spot. As Bitcoin going up, and I do think we're still on track to hit $100,000 plus by the end of this year. Because I just think by the time we hit 80,000, you know, the FOMO is going to start kicking in, and from 80 to 90 and 90 to 100, it isn't that much. When I used to talk about $100,000 when we were at like 20,000, it seemed like, oh, that's impossible. That's 5x, right? But we're not that far off. We're really not. Once we get back to 73,000 and we're at 80,000, you know, that's only like 25%, right? That's not like 500% anymore. So I think that's going to happen. And it'll be interesting to see what happens next year, because if we're starting the year at, let's say, 105, 110,000, man, how high can we go in 2025, right? Like, the sky's the limit. We have an entire year to go up. You know, there are some wild predictions, like Plan B is saying, you know, $1 million in 2025. I just don't believe it. But there are others that have called, you know, like 500,000 in 2025, 400,000 in 2025. Those are really high estimates, but with institutional FOMO and retail FOMO and everyone else FOMOing and private companies and countries FOMOing, and possibly now Bitcoin becoming a strategic reserve for the United States, and if the United States starts doing that, will China follow and others follow, and then cause, like, you know, a hoarding war among countries? I mean, who knows? Who knows what might happen in 2025? But I'm very, very excited and bullish about 2025, and I hope you guys are too. But, you know, as Bitcoin's going up, you know, you could definitely see retail interest coming back. I mean, look at what happened with memes the last few days. I was just looking at the charts today, like Shiba, which I thought was like absolutely dead, they're up almost 60% this week. Pepe's up like 40%, Doge is up like 30 or 30 something percent. All the memes started coming up. You know, that's an indicator that retail FOMO is coming back. At least a lot of the retail investors that kind of like converted to stable coins, I think they're coming back in. A lot of the alts started coming back. We're not anywhere close to our earlier high of this year in March. I know that. But hey, like I said at the beginning of this video, it feels damn good to see the portfolio come up in a big way in a single week, right? Rather than see it kind of trend sideways or down and down and down slowly and drain out, it's good to get reminders like now, hey, it's worth the wait, it's worth DCAing, and now we are being rewarded because I think everything is starting to line up and we will see some tremendous moves in the next 3 months. I am so excited. Hopefully you guys are too. I think it's just going to be absolutely fantastic. So all the coins that you guys have been asking me about, like, oh, is this dead? Is that dead? Is it going to come back? Is that going to survive? For the most part, yes to everything. It's really hard to kill crypto. A lot of dead projects that may seem like they're dead and there's no traction, even for years. Sometimes they come back full force and they form a new high, right? But this cycle's a little bit different because, let's say, for example, with memes, there are so many. So I don't know if, like, the old goodies like Doge and Sheep can make a new high. Probably, but how much higher? I don't know, because now there are new blue chips like Pepe and Bonk and Whiff. And what about the L1s? What about, like, you know, like ETH and Cosmos and Polkadot, like Cardano? A lot of people ask me about these all the time. Are they gonna come back? Probably to their previous high. But, you know, we have the new layer 2s, and we also have Solana, and we also have Avalanche. I mean, they're still very strong, gaining strength. So even though some of these others that have been weaker as of late, doesn't mean that they won't come back. And who knows, maybe they pull a rabbit out of their hat, they start drawing in the developers and the volume, and you know what, they can come back very quickly. So this is why, generally speaking, you don't want to give up on a project. If you're down and you don't want to DCA, okay, you can hodl. But if you do truly believe in them and you know they are not giving up, they're working hard, they are going to make it, well, then you DCA. And when they do come back up, you'll be rewarded, right? So things are looking good, guys. Looking really, really good. All right, now as for this car, I picked this car up earlier this year. I paid cash for it, and it was quite expensive. So I've always wanted a G-Wagon. So this is a used 2022 Mercedes G550. And the reason why I picked up, because, man, over the years, you know, before, I never understood G-Wagons. I know some people still don't get it. It's like, it's just a big giant box, you know, it's so ugly and I don't get it, right? like, you don't really get it until you actually drive one. Like, so I didn't really get into G-Wagons until like a few years ago, and then I started looking and looking and looking and looking, and I'm like, man, I just like really want one. So I finally decided to make the move earlier this year. So this one is a special one. This is called the Edition 550, so they only created 200 of them, and it's very limited, and I like this one in particular because of the color. You know what, G-Wagons, normally you only see 3 colors: black, white, and like matte silver, right? That's really what you see. You hardly see any of the other colors. And this one comes with a really beautiful two-tone. It's like a red and black two-tone color on the outside. I love the contrast, and you just don't see this color combination anywhere. And it's part of this Edition 550, part of the reason why I bought it. And also the inside, it's a special pointed inside that you normally don't see in G550s. Napa leather, you got everything. You got the white leather, the white stitching, the contrast in here. You got the ambient lighting and everything else. It's just really nice. It's a really nice color combination. And also in addition, there's a few other little stuff, but that's the gist of it with this special edition. But I saw this car earlier this year. I'm like, man, that's a beautiful combination. I've always wanted G550, a G-Wagon, and I didn't want to overpay because at the time, and I think to some extent, even now, Mercedes dealerships are still marking up their G-Wagons. Like at the time when I was looking at it, I have a relationship with this Mercedes dealership, and he's like, all the new ones, they're still marking up over $50,000. $50,000. And I'm like, I don't want to pay $50,000 over for a new G-Wagon. They're already expensive. Like the new AMGs are like 200 plus, so then now you have to add 50,000 on top of it. The G550s start somewhere between like 130s to 150s. This one I saw the sticker, the MSRP is actually 180. But I picked this one up around like 135. That was like after tax and everything. But it's, you know, low miles, it's brand new, and you know, it's something that I always wanted, so I picked it up for myself, right? So that's the backstory. But you may be wondering, fire truck. You may be wondering why. What's the big deal about it? Well, first of all, it's acquired taste. I love the look of the G-Wagon. Besides the color combination, I just love the look. It's a big box. It has an old school look with the new school like tech. So the engine, the inside, everything, suspension, everything has been updated over the years. But Mercedes kept some old school stuff with this G-Wagon. Obviously the look, the boxy look, even though it's been updated over the years, it's hard to change. In case you guys are looking for a G-Wagon, make sure you get one that's 2019 plus. There's a lot of G-Wagons that's 2018 prior that look similar, but they're smaller and they're not as nicely appointed on the inside, and they're not as powerful, right? And then also 2025, they just redesigned it, and there's slight changes with that, but very minimal. But anyways, just get one 2019 plus. But example of an old school vibe is like the doors, right? You still have to click. There's no, unfortunately, there's no easy entry, so you can't just like tap it and it unlocks. On the new 2025s, they do have that, but there's still a button you have to click, right? And the doors are heavy. You have to slam the doors. If you don't, it just doesn't, it clicks, but it doesn't close. And you know, the family always has this problem. They're closing it and they have to redo it. I always tell them to redo it. But you know, it makes you feel like you gotta be a man when you drive this. You gotta like really slam it, and especially the trunk. There's no power trunk because it opens sideways, but when you close it, it's just like you gotta slam it down, right? So that's example. And also getting in and out is quite difficult because this is really high. This is as high as a full-size truck. It doesn't look like it on the outside, but when you're sitting on the inside, you're really elevated. When you're next to like a mid-size SUV, you're looking down on them. So that's another reason why driving this is so awesome. You're sitting in a very elevated position, the visibility all around. The windows are super straight. There's like no slant whatsoever with the windshield or the back window. So you're sitting really elevated above everyone. So I like to joke around that you like just drive over the peasants with this, right? That's what it feels like. You just like no one can be in front of you because you're just like driving them over. That's what it feels like in here. And also I love V8s and V8 exhausts, right? And that's what this has. This has a big V8. This one produces about 440 horsepower and 410 pound-feet of torque. Plenty of torque, plenty of horsepower. And when you floor it, you could hear that V8. It's not obnoxious, but you could definitely hear it. And I love it. I love hearing it. And that's something else you got to be aware of, because in the new one and the 2025 one, in the G550s, they replaced the V8 with a V6. So it's very controversial. So I do think the 2019 to 2024 G550s will actually retain their value pretty well because people want that V8. The new one, the new AMGs will still get the V8, but Mercedes is slowly phasing out the V8s, which I think is a big mistake. Again, everyone's trying to do that because they're trying to go more EV or hybrid or whatever. You know what? People want V8s. Just give people V8s. That's really it. Like, I don't know why it's such a like a complicated thing, especially with sports cars, with exotic cars. People want to hear the V8. Okay, people don't want to hear electric whine, like especially car enthusiasts. So just keep the V8s. I don't get why that's such a hard notion to understand with car makers. Anyways, but that's something else. So this car is not the quickest, but it sounds great and it's decent, and I'll probably chip it because there is a way to chip it and you gain like 100 horsepower and 150 pound-feet of torque. So basically it makes it the same as an AMG. I'll do it at some time, but it's not a big thing. On the inside, it's really nice. It's quiet. You got dual screens. The one caveat, I'll say the negative, is this is not a touchscreen. In the 2025, this is upgraded touchscreen. So you do have to mess around with this, like, you know, this touchpad kind of thing. It's not a big deal. I mean, it would be nice if this touch, but it's not. And then you got everything. Heated, ventilated seats, power, memory, heated steering wheel. Everything in here is quite nice, all aluminum and everything. It just looks good. So you get the old school vibe with the new school luxury features and technology. And it's just great. I love this car. I daily drive this car. I love it. So if you guys want to see the full review, it's on Drivers Only, my other channel. Josh and Steve reviewed it already. So, but yeah, that's it for this. Overall, if you guys, you know, in this coming bull market, a lot of you guys will make a ton of money. A lot of you guys will become millionaires. If you're looking for a good daily driver, a family-oriented car, and one that's great for business use, hint, hint, business deduction, this is a really nice car to consider. That's one of the many reasons why so many people buy it. All right, smash it a like, subscribe to the channel. I will see you guys on Monday, but look forward to the Sunday walk video tomorrow. Okay, have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye.